Hello, my name is Matthew Marvin. I also go by the Poker Gypsy. I'm here with Austin. Austin, just plain old Austin. You know it's creepy, right? You don't have nothing behind it.
I mean, I have my last name, yeah.
All right. And then I heard you do documentaries, like true crime documentaries.
Yeah, so I host a show called Bizarre Junkies, and I do podcasts. So I do twice a week podcasts. One of them is a live stream where the audience suggests creepy videos and we watch them and react to them live on YouTube. But I also have a podcast where I've interviewed people like Sasquatch researchers. I've interviewed Jay Wasley from Ghost Adventures. I've had people give me their accounts of some true crime, but like not so much conspiracies, but like cryptids, so like Bigfoot, all that kind of stuff. Aliens, we cover a lot as well.
You feed people's dark sides, basically.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And you said John Orlando said he's seen Bigfoot.
Yeah, he came on. He came on an episode and told me about when he was. I don't remember. He was like anywhere from like 5 to 7 years old camping, and he saw this creature walk upright.
I don't know. I don't know. I've been told that John doesn't go camping, so
not anymore because of that. He goes glamping, but this is when he was a kid. You know, he went with his dad. He went with his family.
All right.
They went out camping. Maybe that was it. Maybe that's why he doesn't go out anymore.
Yeah. All right. Maybe he did see something. All right. So I gotta ask, man, what attracts you to do what you do? Because like horror scenes just like freak me the fuck out sometimes. I can't even watch like the ones at the hospital where they're operating on people. What attracts you to it?
That's a very good question. You know, nobody's ever really asked me what attracts me to it or necessarily why. They just always go, how'd you get started? So I guess I'll give that story. Maybe we'll do a therapy session at the same time. So when I was younger, you know, I had a TV growing up and the Sci-Fi Channel was on and I used to just watch that religiously. So they had like ghost hunters on there. They had a bunch of B films about crazy sci-fi topics. And I was always intrigued. Like, it always just fascinated me. I remember watching, I don't know if you're a big moviegoer, but the Dawn of the Dead remake that Zack Snyder made back in 2004, which crazily enough was his directorial debut. I saw that movie as a kid and it freaked me the fuck out, but I was also attracted to it. I was like, I love this. This is great. It's gritty. It's raw. It's scary. I'm not much of a jump scare person. Like, I'm not going to go watch The Conjuring or anything like that, but I like to watch movies where like society falls apart, and I'm always curious about how that would happen. But I've always just had like a morbid curiosity. It was really present when I was in like elementary school, kind of went away in middle school, and then in high school, I mean, Travis can probably attest, we had like Live Leak.
Oh yeah, lots of Live Leak.
Lots of George, who was on an episode of yours, and I have known each other since middle school. There'd be times where he'd be like, bro, did you see that dude get his head ripped off by a chainsaw? I was like, no, all right, I'll see it.
Okay.
And I've jaded myself and I've kind of desensitized myself.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
It can be, I've been able to handle weird situations. Like we talked about it. George and I had a friend who passed away a couple of years ago and, you know, like, yeah, it sucked. And and it makes me feel bad at times, but I only cried one time. And I think it was I was just overwhelmed in the moment.
Right.
Because when he passed away, it wasn't like I was told to do this. I just kind of took it upon myself to tell all of his friends. And it was a kind of a weird lane where it was almost like I was at fault for it. Nobody blamed me, obviously. Like, I wasn't at fault for him passing away, but it almost felt like because I was the bearer of bad news to all these people. Yeah. And so I think that's what was the only reason why I cried. Like, I miss him every day. You know, I wish he was still here. It's not like I don't have feelings, but I think stuff like this has desensitized me to the point where I'm like, okay, I can stomach this. So I'm pretty sure you're gonna have a question about it, but we had a crime scene cleaner on and he was telling these grotesque stories and George was behind the rig about to like throw up.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there like, wow, this is fascinating. Go on. Like, I can just stomach it better than other people. So I think that's why I've been able to do this show.
What do you think is the cause of that? Just being exposed to it most of your life?
I think, and it wasn't like I grew up fine. I didn't have a bad upbringing. Both my parents are still together. There were no drugs in that. I had like family members, you know, like my uncle who had drug problems when I was growing up. And so I got to see that, but it wasn't like, you know, in comparison to like your household. Like, I wasn't in a bad area. Like, I grew up in an upper middle class neighborhood. So, but I think it was just my curiosity and being able to have exposure to it.
Right.
Like with the Sci-Fi Channel. And then when I had, dial-up internet back in the day. And then eventually we got high-speed internet and I was like, I can look at everything now.
Yeah.
So I became aware that like, oh, if I'm curious about this, I can go find it.
Right. Okay. So one thing I like to do is I like to study, the documentaries where people have died and then come back.
Like,
Have you seen those, the documentaries where they say they come back with information?
I've seen ones, I remember seeing one on the History Channel of near-death experiences or where they died, went to hell, supposedly.
Yeah.
A little about me, I'm not very religious at all.
Right.
So I always have a bit of skepticism with that. But I saw one where they were talking about where they had died, went to hell, and came back, and they were like, Jesus told me that I needed to change my life, and that's what I did. So I've seen some of those, but I haven't been too big into those documentaries.
Okay. Because, I studied those and I watched one guy, and something I've come up with that may help a lot of people, I guess, accept death, right? Because that seems to be a big thing in our society. But, imagine the most beautiful moment you've ever experienced on life, right? On earth, right? So multiply that times 1,000. And that's what death feels like. And that's what everybody's running around scared to see. And coming from a truck driver who gets out there and risks his life every day, and slides down mountains backwards and all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that out there. Maybe that'll help somebody. It's reaching to my dark side again, but
yeah, and the thing is like maybe with this channel I get to I don't know, maybe not for Travis because it's unhealthy how much time I'm here, but in a healthy way, I get to I get to take a calculated look at it. I get to look at it not in the sense of I'm dealing with this in the moment. I'm dealing with, looking at a crime scene because a family member was murdered or somebody close to me was murdered, or I'm an officer or an EMT or a first responder that has to.
So you're able to do it without getting emotionally involved, basically.
Correct. Yeah, I'm able to take a look at it from a
outside
distance.
perspective.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. So, true crime. How has it affected the justice system over time? You know anything about that?
So I'm not too familiar with like legislation in that sense, but I will say that true crime is a massive niche now in social media, in podcasting. It's led to success for my show. It's led to success for many other shows that are far superior. And what I've learned is that because there's so many people fascinated by it, there are so many people with an eye open to, oh, okay, so there's a murder. So now there's a trial.
Yeah.
Now there's this. Now they may look up laws. Okay, what is the difference between first, second, and third degree murder, or what's manslaughter, or what's all that? So I feel like it makes people more
aware.
Yeah, it's helping people open up their eyes to this part of the world of okay, I can kind of understand, because a lot of the podcasts I listen to that are true crime, they will talk about the origin, the prehistory of this person or people. Then they'll go into everything they did, and then they'll even go into, okay, so this is what happened afterwards. This is how they were tried. This is what ended up happening. This is the sentence they got, or this is the punishment they got. And then this is what the aftermath of that was. Okay. So there are people out there that I feel do a good job in showing that. And if I wasn't into true crime, I probably wouldn't know anywhere near as much as I do now. And I feel like I still don't even know a lot.
Okay. You said something earlier about a crime cleanup scene, right?
Yes.
What's the most gruesome thing that you've ever seen that lives rent-free in your head?
Oh, we're going to do that. So I got into a really dark, I don't want to call it a place, but there's a point where I was just morbidly curious. And so I looked up like autopsy photos, and this is all out there. So it's not like I was digging for it. You can just search and find it. I was looking at like photos from like the Afghan War. And there was a guy who was on this table, and the top of his head looked like uncooked hamburger, but his tongue was still fully intact. So that's one that like is just, it'll come up and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember seeing that. But we had a guy on the show named Matt Montague, who is a crime scene cleaner. That is his job. He owns a company that does that. And one of the stories he told me, and it went viral on TikTok, was him talking about when he was training with this company called Amdicon, which trains and certifies people to do this, because you have to be hazmat certified and all that kind of stuff. You have to learn how to dispose of material, because it's not just bodies, it's drugs, it's paraphernalia, it's fecal matter, it's all that kind of stuff. And so he said that when he was training, he was in a SWAT van. They were watching a live feed from a camera on an officer, their helmet. And there was a hostage situation. This guy had held his mom hostage. And it had been a couple of days, and SWAT team was like, all right, fuck it, we're going to go in. So they go in there, and the guy had his mom and he had cut her open from her neck all the way down to her pelvis, ripped her open, split her rib cage open, took her spleen out and was eating it while masturbating.
Oh, Jesus.
Right? I mean, doesn't that just make you curious? Me?
No.
Am I just
Makes me feel a lot of things, but not
the sick
anything
fuck
good.
in this room? I'm just a sick fuck now? Like, is that what this is?
No, you're not a sick fuck. It just doesn't do anything for me.
I don't think it should do something for you. I don't think it should be like if you're, and to be fair, like, I don't want it to sound like I'm judging people. Like, if you want to get off to something that's legal and doesn't affect children or affect hurting people, okay. But if you're like, I need that to get off, like, maybe you should probably seek some kind of help.
Right.
Maybe you should and maybe you still like it, but you understand why you do, and you can go, okay, I can understand myself now. I understand that this is potentially not cool.
Right.
Like, this is not fun in any way, but it's, people are different.
Have you seen any instances where like someone died and there was a hoarder? Because that would be like the worst job for me, to clean up a body and all the shit they hoard.
So I was on an episode with Matt Montague, the same guy on Action Junkies, John Orlando's show, who was on this show. And he was telling us about how a guy, his mom had died, and she had been I believe in the house for like 2 years dead.
Yeah.
And he was just still living. And then he died, but he hit his head on like the toilet and it busted open. So it started just like a flood in their house. And so everything was just like, there was trash everywhere because it was a hoarder's house. But then everything was like, people stew.
Like, did somebody clean that up, or did they burn the house down? I
cleaned
would
it
have
up.
just burned the house down.
No, they clean it up because it's covered under insurance, under homeowner's insurance.
Yeah, so would a fire be. I don't know.
Correct. Yeah. So he says that they can clean it, and you oftentimes wouldn't even be able to tell that something like that had happened unless they told you.
Oh, that makes me cringe. Okay. So, do you believe in ghosts, souls, spirits, and why?
So like I said, I am not religious. I grew up going to church with my grandmother, and then it just totally, I looked into it from a different perspective. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. But I do feel that there is something more than just this plane that you and I are talking in right now. I would like to think there are ghosts. Based on how I grew up looking into them, like I said, Ghost Hunters was a huge show for me. And when I talk to people who ghost hunt for a living, like Jay Wasley from Ghost Adventures, the hit TV show, when he explains it, it's just like, and he's a skeptic too. He tells me, he's like off air, he's like, yeah, I have no reason to believe any of these people.
Yeah.
Other than, yeah, sure, I'm shooting a TV show, but like, it would still be a compelling episode if we could get, hey, we went in there and we found out, no, it was just Travis making noises in the basement. You have a different problem. You don't have a ghost problem. You have a burglary problem. But
don't at me.
We know it's you. But yeah, so when a crazy thing Jay Wasley told me was that, because I asked him, I said, how come we see ghosts and they're always like Civil War era, they're always Victorian era, there's always like slave owner, plantation residents. It's never like somebody screaming Free Britney from that time period, or like somebody from a couple of years ago who's saying YOLO. How come we never see that? And what he was explaining to me on the show was, back then people died so violently.
Yeah.
And he feels that it may not be a religious spirit. It may be a release of energy that is still there. And so when you're killed so violently, there's such an aggressive release of energy that's stained in this room. Mm-hmm. Like, let's just say somebody's violently murdered right here.
Right.
We don't have to be here for it, but they,
it's like energy, right?
Energy there's an
stuck.
energy. Like, I would like to think we could all tell there's an energy in this room because we are all here possessing it.
Right. Yeah, I play poker, so I definitely energy to people, Like,
yeah, so I feel that there has to be something. It may not be as cut and dry as angels and demons.
Right.
Because there are demonic, and I use that in the sense of like malice, not of a religious standing, but there may be malicious things going on that we can't explain, paranormal things. Like we were watching on the live stream the other day, a family that was being tormented by this person, by an entity. And then they had a ghost hunter come in, and the ghost hunter, using a Ouija board, learned that he resembled some semblance of the person who murdered the entity that was haunting them. So he followed that person home. And so it's like, okay, sure, maybe it's not real, but it could be there. It seems too likely to just be a coincidence. all these people have paranormal experiences. All these people have something that they've related to that they may not have even heard. Like I could say right now, I've had an experience, and Travis, who has never, granted, because we do the show, we've talked about it, but he may have never disclosed to me before about that. And he could be like, actually, I've had an encounter just like that.
Yeah.
And we didn't know until just now. So there has to be something more than just, okay, we live, we die. And it doesn't have to be you go to heaven, you go to hell. It could be my energy died calmly.
Yeah.
So therefore, I'm not going to be stuck where I died.
Okay. So brings me on to my next subject. Aliens. Do you believe also, like, where do they come from? Do you think give me some information on if you believe, if you don't believe, why are they here? Where do they come from?
So aliens is a fun one because up until recently with the House Oversight Committee, we haven't had anybody. I mean, we've always had people saying, I've seen this, I've seen that. And to be fair, Michael Sartain, I don't know if you know what Michael Sartain is. So he was on my show and he said that, how come I can see somebody get a shoe thrown at him in 4K, but I can't see aliens clearly? Which is a valid point. And what I like to do is I always like to be in the middle of everything. I always like to, until we have definitive evidence proving yes or no, I'm not going to choose a definitive side.
If they abduct you, you're going to see them.
Correct.
So you may just not be able to see them because they're not close to you.
Correct. And I've done this, going back to the religious thing, exorcisms. I did a documentary on exorcism and found that most of them have mental illness.
Really?
Like, have you seen the movie Exorcism of Emily Rose? So that was based on Anneliese Michel, who was from Germany back in the 60s, I believe. It was early 20th century. She had temporal lobe epilepsy.
Okay.
But she was so indoctrinated in her religion that she thought she was a martyr and she was being possessed.
Okay, so question. With these possessive ones you see, right? Because I'm trying to figure out if it's just a mental illness, why do they always have a priest come in and do it? Is it just the mental illnesses are related to religion?
Well, a lot of the people you'll find that think they're possessed are religious because that's the explanation there. If I were to start exhibiting symptoms that would lead to like epilepsy or schizophrenia, go to a doctor, I'd be like, okay, because that's what I, have been taught in. That's what I've decided is my viewpoint on everything. Okay, let me go to a doctor because this is obviously a medical issue going on.
Right.
I wouldn't go to my priest and be like, banish the demons from me, because I don't think that's what that is.
Okay. All right.
But going back to the aliens, though, I do feel that it is very ignorant to think that we are the only life force in this universe, in this galaxy, in this system. There has to be something else out there. And I think it's very ignorant to think we are the only ones.
Do you think they walked the earth already and left us clues, or they've never been here yet?
I think I kind of side with Joe Rogan on this, as he thinks that they are a monitoring entity. Because if you look, yes, we've had traces of people saying they've seen aliens all the way back to hieroglyphics and even before then. But if you look at the uptick in sightings, all kind of stems around the Manhattan Project in the 40s with the nuclear test program. So perhaps there's an intergalactic council or something that we're not aware of, and they are monitoring us because they go, oh, these people, these territorial monkeys own this level of destructiveness. Right. We have to keep our eye on them, and it might be entertaining for them.
Human modification. Do you think we were modified? Because there's a certain, I guess, culture out there who feels like we're missing a part of our DNA. We don't know how to explain it.
That's always crazy because I've never really thought about that. I believe in evolution, the theory of evolution, and how, over hundreds of thousands of years, species can evolve because, if you want to be, faster, you're going to mate with the people who are faster.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You don't think an alien got stuck on a planet and just decided to fuck a monkey? Like, I mean,
who knows?
If no one was looking at me, I'd probably fuck everything on the planet. Like,
right. Of course. Of course. And here's the thing, until we can definitively prove that that's not the case, right? Which evolution does a strong job at doing that, but we can't be 100% certain about anything.
Right. All right. So I guess not to go off a little topic a little bit, but you recently said that you're a father.
Yeah, I've been. My little one just turned 5 on Sunday.
Okay. So child support, do you think it should be capped for females? Because here's my theory on it, because I have a child as well, right? If the average household makes 60,000 and you can't function with the same amount of money that the average household makes, maybe the father should get the custody. Just a thought.
Yeah, see, that's always such a divisive like topic. So here I've seen, mom and I are still together, so we don't have that problem. But I've seen people close to me who have had to do child support, and always in the situation, the person that was collecting child support was the person that could reasonably take care of the child. I've seen people who are like, oh, they have no ambitions, they can't keep a job. They had a great government housing and they lost it because they let somebody else in who they said wasn't supposed to be in that complex in, and they fucked it up every time. So that I could understand.
Right.
I think there is a unnatural bias, in my opinion, of always going with the mom no matter what for child support. But I feel that there should be an evaluation of, okay, and at a certain age, you can't even ask the child. They don't even know what.
Right. 100%.
Like if you ask my child who is 5 but also has special needs, like he wouldn't be able to tell you.
Right.
I mean, he would say mommy all the time because he's with her every day. But then you see him with me and you're like, well, okay, I can see two functions here. So I think it should be not just you go to court, you both kind of go, I can provide. No, I can provide. Okay, well, here's my job. Here's their job. All right, I'm going to go with them.
Because, see, there's a big conversation that comes up all the time, right? If I put a quarter in a Coke machine and a Coke pops out, is the Coke mine or does it still belong to the vending machine? You see what I'm saying? And if you think about it, there's a lot of women out there who use their bodies exactly like a vending machine. If you got enough money, you can get the product.
I agree. There are people that, and then I've also seen people who use children as an income source.
100%.
And I've had this happen with a kind of close family member. I have a cousin who's around my age who has autism. He's kind of high functioning. He can, you can have a conversation with him. You can have, but you can tell that there's something, he's not quite all there. He can't quite live on his own. He probably wouldn't pay all his bills on time. He'd probably spend on things he shouldn't spend on instead of paying for his bills. So he lives with his mom, and his mom was collecting Social Security and was supposed to give, I think was supposed to give him, like him specifically, okay, the court looked at like, okay, we're giving you $2,500 a month for him. You need $1,000 for rent, food, whatever, to take care of him. He lived on the property. He had like a trailer, which I think is actually a pretty sweet gig, Travis. You get your own little like just trailer.
Honestly, I think I might move into my family's yard. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're kind of alone, but you always have your parents right there. But you're not in a room. You're in a little compound. Yeah. So he would live there, and then his mom would give him like $200 each check.
Yeah.
For the month.
Yeah.
And so, but crazy. But there are people like that would just collect. They would just have, and I, as a parent, like you do have a responsibility to take care of your kids, but I've
100.
seen people who they'll have 6, 7 kids and they're like bothered that they have the kids. It's like, but they want to collect the Social Security or the welfare for it.
Okay. So why do you think they charge to adopt a kid, right? Because, I mean, why can't they just check bank statements? Like when I'm going for a loan, all they do is check my income and my bank statements. Why do I have to pay to adopt a child? You think it's more of a money thing than a what's right for the child thing?
I think it's a little of both. I think what you're finding is, let's say I want to adopt a child for malicious intent. They don't know that. I'm gonna hide my face.
But what does paying a fee solve? You think that because you could pay the fee, it stops you from doing bad shit to the kid?
On paper, that's what it's supposed to be. Is on paper, it's okay. Well, we charge. It's supposed to be a barrier to entry, for adopting a child.
Like they do an eval. Why can't I just do the eval and show you my bank statements?
Right.
Like,
why can't I just do a good faith deposit like with the house?
Right. Like it makes no sense.
But I get it though, because adopting a child, it's just like having a child. It is a very serious responsibility you're taking on. Granted, that's a whole nother conversation that I really don't even feel qualified to talk about with
100
with people. Like, should you be allowed to have kids?
Right.
Because, and here, at least in this country, you have the freedom to do what you want. Right. But sometimes it may not be the right thing to do.
Speaking of people who shouldn't be allowed to have kids, how do you feel about Audit the Audit?
So I haven't watched his stuff too specifically, but what I find about these channels is that they're very annoying.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily pro-cop and I'm not anti-cop. I'm very, there are bad cops. You know, I have family members, like my father-in-law is ex-Metro. And I do feel that when you go and audit these places, it doesn't help anything.
Right.
Let's say you're a cop. I go to your, I mean, here it's the sheriff. And I go, oh, this cop's acting like, yeah, okay, cool. Write that down.
Yeah.
Trash. They don't care. They just don't care. They have much bigger problems to worry about. And they have meetings are in all day. They have crimes. They have to, you know, there's some crimes that get elevated to the point where they're like, all right, now I got to supervise this.
Yeah.
And so the ones that get me though with the auditors that makes me hilarious, I find hilarious, and it's almost like instant karma is when they go into like military installations. Like they'll go in front of the base and they'll be like, my such and such amendment says I can film. It's like, no, you can't film a military installation.
Right.
And then they go onto the military installation. They get detained by military police. And they're like, why am I being detained? It's like, there's a whole different set of rules now you just walked into.
Right.
Like, let's say, for example, Travis here is, you know, one of the partners here at the studio. Let's say in the state of Nevada, you can open carry your firearm legally.
Yep.
You come in here and Travis tells you cannot do that as the owner of the business.
Right.
That's
private property. Right.
correct.
100%.
Correct. Granted, there are statutes that say that it has to be publicly posted. You can't just say that. I mean,
right.
He could still trespass you.
Right.
But I can't come in here and be like, well, my Second Amendment right. I throw that out the door when I walk in the door.
on private property. Yeah.
Correct.
Go on, throw it out.
So it's the same thing. It's like you're trying to cherry pick your amendments, and you're trying to cherry pick what you think is right in a situation that it doesn't apply.
Okay.
You know, like I have my CCW. When I got it, I full willingly knew. It was told to me when I took the course and I qualified for it, and when I filled out the paperwork at my sheriff's office, I can't carry on a school property.
Right. Well, oh no, 100%.
Correct.
Yeah,
And I can't carry onto a post office. I can't carry onto government buildings,
Right.
state and federal. I knew that. But then if I try to go, well, my Second Amendment, no, you knew going into that, you're just trying to get attention. You're just trying to be difficult to deal with. And that's what I feel most of these channels are.
Yeah.
Granted, there are some, like Travis was explaining a little bit more about the audit to us, where he gives grades. But it sounds like Travis, he's not there in person. He watches videos.
Yeah, he audits people auditing.
Right. So maybe everything needs checks and balances. If done for the sense of checking and balancing, not for the sense of, oh, I'm going to make money from checking and balancing. It's the sense of, I feel that I can make a change, just like this show. You feel that you can be here and impact, so even if it's just one person's life. You're doing something.
Right.
Correct. And so I feel that perhaps with some of these audit places, that's what they're trying to do.
Right.
But some of them will get into sticky situations, and I get it. As somebody who makes money from YouTube, I totally get it. You want content. You want something that's going to draw people in. But
they're being counterproductive, basically.
They're being counterproductive, or they're just flat out being difficult. Like there was one where a lady was shot and killed because she went to a church that was a private property, and the security guard, where a shooting had happened a week before, was on edge. Like he's like, the shooting just happened. Now I have this lady coming here being difficult, and I don't know what her intentions are. And she kept coming onto the property, and he kept telling her, I'm going to trespass you. Like you can't be here.
Right.
And he shot her. Granted, could have better measures have been taken? Absolutely. But she still knowingly went there and incited this kind of reaction. So I can't feel sympathy for somebody if you go there doing that.
Right. Okay. Question, I guess. Have you seen any crime scenes where people tried to melt the weapons, melt the guns, melt bodies, and not get away with it, or do they usually get away with it?
Well, I mean, the cartel melts a lot of people. There was I forgot his name. Maybe Travis can look it up. But there was a guy who was a serial killer in Mexico in the 90s. And he was like a religious fanatic. And so they did these rituals where they would melt bodies.
Yeah.
And he was getting away with it because he was in Mexico and he was doing it to Mexicans. But then he decided, serial killers get worse, as we know they start to,
especially when they get away with it.
Especially when they get away with it, they start to do crazier and crazier things like, oh, I can get away with it. I'm untouchable. So then he started taking American citizens, capturing them, bringing them back and doing it. And then it brought all this heat and they caught him. But they would melt stuff all the time. What you find more so is like they'll toss a gun into the river.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, here recently they put a body in a barrel and then put it in Lake Mead. And then
they heard they found that one.
70 years later it comes up, and I think there's still a bounty on that, right, Travis? Are we still giving away?
Yeah, they haven't solved it.
Were we still giving away 5,000 per?
Oh
body,
yeah,
bro?
yeah. David Colmeyer, the problem solver.
Yeah, problem solver. He's giving away $5,000 for if you find one. I think he said that like a guy went down there. He was like, if I go down there with my submarine and I find 5 of them, can I get 5 per? He's like, no, what? No, dude. Like, but yeah. So people destroy evidence all the time.
You think that alien landed in that person's backyard here in Vegas or no? Is there any conclusion to that here yet?
I haven't followed it. I'll have to follow up on it. We had a potential lead to get them on the show. It kind of dried up. But here's the thing. Why was there a month in waiting to tell everybody? If it was for a hoax, same day I'd have been like, guys, there's an alien in my backyard.
Did they not have it on security camera footage?
They have. There's footage of. I don't know if they had CCTV, but I know that there's a video of them walking out.
Alien.
Yeah. So there was a crazy one where I saw where everybody's looking at the tractor and there's a wall here and you see an eyeball.
Yeah, I've seen that one too.
So you saw that one.
But what about the one that you see the whole alien in the backyard? Was that CGI planted or?
I don't think so. So Travis and I come from filmmaking backgrounds. I was a film major in college before I dropped out, which is the best thing I could have ever done. We edit stuff all the time. We make content all the time.
Right.
I always look at, and like I got a keen eye for this from Sci-Fi when you could tell they spent all their budget on CGI.
Right.
But they didn't make it look like it was in the scene. It just looked like a computer graphic now walking in the scene.
Yeah.
Stuff like that I feel is very hard to fabricate and make it look like it was there. It can be done. 100% it can be done. But by people who don't have that as a background, it's like I don't even think I could do it in a short amount of time.
And you said you and George reviewed the release of documents on aliens, right? I think they also said they're not friendly or something like that.
So we watched, we live streamed on Bizarre Junkies the entire House Oversight Committee on UAPs, which is now the new term for UFOs. It's unidentified aerial phenomena is what they're called now. We watched the entire House Committee hearing, and they had 3 whistleblowers. I believe they were all intelligence agents from the Navy. One of them was a pilot. So you remember that I showed you on that intro, that Tic Tac UFO. So he was the guy who filmed that from his jet. We watched, and so a lot of the stuff couldn't be, are aliens real? Yes. Yeah. Because they had NDAs they had signed. A lot of the times they said, we'll go to a skiff, which is a secure shipping container where it's insulated on the inside so nobody can hear from the outside. And then you can give these testimonies to Congress. And Congress just goes, we heard. But they don't say from who, so you can't, it's a way of getting around the NDA. So they asked, one of the questions that they asked was, have people been harmed in the attempt to cover up these incidences? And all 3 of them said yes. Harmed or killed in order to cover up these things. Then they said, they never said outright they were harmful, but they did say that all of these possess a threat to national security. And I think they mean from the aspect of these are unidentified objects just flying around in our airspace.
Right.
That we have no idea what their intentions are.
Okay, 2 questions left. I got one, and then I got a surprise question for you.
All right.
When you go, how do you want to do it? Cremated? Do you want to be buried? Do you want to be turned to a tree? And why?
So that's like a big problem I have, and it's probably not a good problem to have at only 25 years old, but I have a very big like fear of death, of dying. And the reason why is because I'm so invested in my life now. Yeah. And I've been like this since high school where I'm like, I don't want this to end. Like, shit sucks. Like I hate, like, my parents decided to, have me and now I have a car payment 20 years later. Like, what the fuck's that about? But, I always kind of toss back and forth. Sometimes like, I want to be buried. Sometimes like, I want to be cremated. Sometimes I'm like, do I want to be donated to science? But then we find out that if you're donated to science, you might be used for artillery testing in the military.
Really?
Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't know that.
This woman donated her body to science, and the science company, to make profit, sold her body to the military, and they used it for like missile testing. They wanted to see what would happen. Like a missile landed like 10 feet away, how much damage would be done to the body. Huh. Yeah, and then there's also a huge trade going on of bodies right here in the U.S. of people doing, like, let's say Travis owns 5 cadavers. He goes, cadaver, that's what you call a body.
Oh, I got to Google that.
Yeah, okay. Cadaver. So Travis goes to, and I believe Vice covered this, he goes to a convention where it's for medical science, and they do autopsies live, and you can pay $50 to watch the autopsy. Well, the person's body that they have never signed an agreement, or the family never signed an agreement saying that that's okay. So it's kind of like a violation of privacy. But to be fair, to some extent, you're already dead. What does it matter? But then there's an ethics argument there.
Yeah, that's crazy. Have you heard anything about the government officials putting dead people's names and information on boats?
No. And here's the thing: is like I in the political spectrum, I'm in the middle. I voted independent in the last election.
Yeah.
I think both sides are just full of shit now, and they're just both just batshit crazy. I think every politician is batshit crazy. Like I don't think there's, especially lifelong politicians. Like I could care less. I know you're not in it to make change. You're in it to make money.
Right.
You're in it to do insider trading, and you're in it to.
Coming from your age perspective, do you think that the United States should have a younger president instead of someone who can't relate to the rest of the population?
100%. George and I had a conversation about this the other day because we've had many mayoral candidates come in, and the youngest one I think was like 45.
Yeah.
And like, okay, I understand there's an age limit to be a president because I do feel you have to have a certain level of maturity.
Yeah, but you're so disconnected
Correct.
from what life currently is.
Correct.
At that
When you
age.
were a 40-year-old now doesn't have the rent problems we have now.
Yeah.
They don't, or they didn't grow up in it. Being my age, I would like to say I make okay money.
Yeah.
And then I find out in this state, for my house level, for 3 people, I am $500 above poverty.
And it's only going to go up.
Yeah, it's only going to go up. And so, and these people, like there was a thing I saw where in New York City, or in Washington, D.C., these kids were young, and sure, maybe the parents were like, oh, this is a big issue. We should all think about it. But it was a group of 12 children aging from, I think, 9 years old to like 14.
Mm-hmm.
And they created a petition to enact like cleaner energy. Like, hey, look, like the world is fucked now because we've destroyed it.
Right.
Can we do something about this? And this girl, and they go up to this politician who's an older woman. She's like, you guys don't really know what you're talking about. You're not old enough to understand. And it was like, okay, so you obviously just
an issue affecting us. Like
correct. Like they just don't care. They don't care about, like I said, like they're in it, especially lifelong politicians are in it as a job.
I feel like it's all a money grab now. I don't
Absolutely.
think we're ran as a country anymore. I think we're ran as a business, and that's just from my personal
100%.
perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, why not? Business is good. Business is great if you're the business.
Right, exactly.
For us, though, the consumer, the consumer that doesn't want to be a consumer, I just want to live my life and be happy and be able to afford rent and, maybe a coffee, because that's apparently the problem is if Travis buys 5 coffees, he could have bought a house with that. So Travis, cut down on it. All right. You're cutting yourself.
If I save all the money I spent on coffee, I can buy 1/1,000,000th of a house. Yes.
Yeah, and that's not even enough to get you a down payment for a house. So really, who cares? But yeah, I mean that's kind of where that's at. Is I 100% feel, and like sure in Congress you can be much younger.
Yeah.
But I had a friend in high school who wanted to be a Congress member, and I was like, I don't want you as a Congress member. I don't want you as a what's the word? It starts
Representative?
with no
Politician.
It starts with an A. It's like a specific position or seat.
I have no idea.
But anyways, they wanted to be that, and I was like, and then she was telling me she went to a convention because she was in school government.
Mm-hmm.
She went to a convention, which I think is cool. I do think that's cool, where you allow high schools to come in to the government and you go, okay, hey, how would you solve these issues?
Yeah.
I feel that's very eye-opening for everybody because in government, there are some good things to learn that they have done. Like, I'm not saying they're batting 1,000 on terrible decisions, but maybe they're batting 500 on terrible decisions. But she told me that she was talking to this representative, and he was like hungover, just chilling.
Yeah.
And he was like, I got my 8th speeding ticket last night. I got to go get that taken care of. I was like, why the fuck is that person in office? Like, I'm not saying I want to be in office. I'm not a saint. Nowhere near it.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm not going to be in office.
See, my problem is like Bill Clinton already set the bar for me, right? He's already gotten fired for getting head in the Oval Office.
Hey, can we be real?
I've got to do it in every room. That's what I'm saying. I'd have to do it in every room, right?
Like when you do that, Trez, you move into a new apartment, you're like, we got to bless this entire house.
And then if I get bored, I'll wake up the next day, look at the first lady, say, hey, can we knock closets off the checklist this time? Like,
can we knock closets off the checklist? But like, why is that a bad thing? Like, you're living your life. Does that, okay, you doing that in the White House, does that hurt me? It's like,
it's a good leader to me.
We're not political junkies here, religious junkies, but
somebody who could relate to me.
Yeah, but like the whole abortion thing, like, does that affect you? Does me going out and having an abortion, like, do you lose 10 years off your life? I mean,
No.
probably from overthinking it. And
Unless I'm
stressing
getting
yourself.
aborted, then it.
But like, oh my God, like this is it's real fucked up. But I worked on the campaign for Hillary Clinton. I was fresh out of high school. I wasn't necessarily her campaign, but I worked for a campaign called She Wins, We Win. So we
Did you send her emails?
no.
Okay.
No, I was part of the group that said, "Can we get the pizza coupons back, though?"
Oh, okay.
Because there was a thing where like she had like Domino's coupons, but the coupon was blurred out. And we're like, "Hey, come on now, Domino's, you could hook us up."
Yeah.
But I remember, and my girlfriend did it with me, and I feel really bad for dragging her along. We got paid, like we got paid okay to do it, but it was like grueling work. It was 12 hours just trying to get people to sign up to vote for, on your side. And it was literally like, I've never been to war, thankfully. I'm not from the military, never served, but like, that was like my rendition of it. Like, I remember the last debate of the year was held at UNLV.
Yeah.
And we were there because we worked at UNLV. We were trying to get college students to vote because that was our target demographic. And it was like going to war. Like, you had that side over there who was pissed at you.
Yeah.
And everybody had their signs, and it did turn violent at some points. Like, it got to the point where the stages had a barrier right here, and you come back a few hours later and the barrier moved 500 feet back. They're like, we don't want you that fucking close to the stage anymore.
Yeah.
And so we got into an argument with the lady and this other girl who was with us, who was about our age. This lady, like, it was a fucked up joke, but as we've learned, I'm not a normal person. I'm very morbid, and I'm very, like, I like dark humor.
Yeah.
And the lady goes, "What would you done if your mom aborted you?" And she goes, "I wish she had. I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't have to deal with any of this." And so, but it's like that concept of like, does it affect you? No, then who cares?
Right.
Like, gay people are getting married. Okay.
And see, that's
Who
the thing.
cares?
Look, I'm definitely a loner, which you guys will find out. And that's one thing I hate about society, right? Let's say a nuclear bomb drops tomorrow and you're the only person left on Earth.
Yep.
What is illegal? You still gonna go to speed limit?
No.
Okay. So that's
If my
the
car
point.
works, assuming.
So the only reason that anything is illegal is because you do it around other humans. So that's, for that concept alone, that's why I just stay to my damn self, and I avoid most humans as much as I can.
Yeah, I mean, like when I took my CCW course, they say, hey, if you're gonna go to the bar, just agree with them. The Earth is flat. Sure, bro. Here's a beer. Just avoid conflict. Like, and that's why I stay home. Like, if it's gonna involve me in possibly getting hurt or injured or being in a scenario I don't want to be in, why would I be there?
Right. How do you feel about being able to get a DUI if you're sitting in the passenger seat and the keys are in the ignition? How do you feel about that?
I feel like that's a little far reaching. I mean, if you had the intent to drive, sure. Okay. But if you're just chilling, like, especially here, like in the summer, I want to go smoke in my car.
Yeah.
Like, and my job allows me to smoke marijuana, which is legal here in the state now.
Right.
And it's summertime. And they said, we're fine with you smoking weed as long as you do it in your car.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm going to have the keys on because it's fucking 300 degrees out. Like, if that's the intent and then they still book you on that, that's got to be fucked up.
Right.
But like, if you're driving actively and I smoke marijuana, so maybe I disagree because at least for me, I understand I can drive and function well on marijuana. I'm not debilitated by it. But if you're drinking and driving, 100% get booked under a DUI. But
okay, have you ever been driving in the middle of the night where you're the only car on the road and a police officer pulls you over and gives you a ticket? Have you
So I'm very fortunate. I have only ever been given a ticket one time, and it was when I was in a work vehicle.
Okay.
I've only been pulled over twice.
Really?
In my 3 times in my life, yeah. But the second time, they just gave me a warning. The first time, it was because I was driving my truck and the plate wasn't on because I was switching registration, but I had the tag in the front mirrors or in the front window. So they came over, looked at it, and they said, "All right, we were just making it," because it was when I was working the campaign.
Right.
We got off at like 11 p.m. and trucks here are very much stolen, and the license plates are disposed of. So they were like, "Okay, we want to see." They saw it. They took my ID. They go, "Who's Ed Alvarez?" Like, "That's my dad, and he has the registration at home. It just got delivered." He's like, "Okay." And of course, the cop played with us. He was having fun, and he was like, "Yeah." So I came back. You guys each got 5 warrants, and I was like, "You got me." But it was a lighthearted conversation. But I have driven. Have you been to Pahrump?
Probably.
It's about an
most likely.
It's about an hour from here.
Yeah.
I dated a girl from there. My grandparents live out there now, so I've driven that at night, and I've never had a cop, but I have had where I've been driving and then lights just appear from behind. I'm like, what the fuck? And then you realize there's just somebody driving with their lights off, which I think is idiotic.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Do you guys know what the preferred speed limit is? Do y'all know? Travis, y'all know what that is? Y'all know what preferred speed limit is?
Is that like the state?
When you're driving down the road and there's no speed limit sign.
35 miles an hour.
I think it's 70, right?
So it depends.
Oh, it's what's per state, right?
Well, and see, that's the thing. That's more gray area, right? If there's a sidewalk present, they're supposed to be like 45 miles an hour.
Okay, but if you're on like an interstate,
no side, see, and we're gonna talk about that with David Colmar. I just wanted to throw that out there so we can cover that on a different one, because that's something y'all need to know. Because if you get pulled over and you say, hey, there's no speed limit sign, then he's gonna educate you on preferred speed limit, like you're supposed to know this shit. And
well, I go what the state speed limit is, so I know here in Nevada it's 70.
Yeah, but if there's sidewalks present,
then it's 45.
Right.
Okay, well, thankfully where I'm speeding, it's out by Red Rock. There's no sidewalks.
I also think that like there's houses, like exposed driveways, it's 25.
Yeah,
see,
because you're in a residential area.
Right, yeah.
But what if there's no sidewalks? What if there's houses present? What if you're driving down a road in the middle of nowhere, there's 4 houses on the road, no sidewalks? How fast you go?
I always default to 35. Is like kind of like my.
If I'm out in the middle of like if I'm on my way to prom, I'm going 85, 95. All right. If your house is there, why did you put your house there?
All right, let's wrap it up. Last question, right? Got to ask it. If a deaf girl gives me a hand job, is that technically oral?
Oh my God, I've heard this before. Honestly, I feel like no, because her mouth still works.
What if she spits on it?
Then she's just helping you. What do you mean?
Right.
I mean,
so
okay,
not oral. Is this classified?
Yeah, but I can understand that. That's a good one. I saw Travis over there, like have to bury his head because that is a good one because like if you think about it,
right,
like that's how she talks.
All right, you know where to find us if you want to see more. You got to tune in.